Welcome to Dreaming Through Knowledge. Tonight, we drift through the forest in autumn, a season defined by color, calm, and the quiet transformation that echo through every tree and leaf. The air carries a new coolness. Morning mist lingers above the fields. Beneath the soft light of shortening days, the forest begins to change in ways both familiar and astonishing. It is a transformation so common that we often stop noticing it. Every year, the greens of summer shift toward hues of gold, crimson, and amber. The forest appears to catch fire without flame, a slow glowing of pigments that emerges from the chemistry within the leaves themselves. This display is not only beauty, it is science made visible. Within every leaf, a gentle turning of molecules marks the rhythm of Earth's tilt and the tree's response to changing time. A leaf is a remarkable structure. Thin, flexible, and filled with microscopic machinery, it functions as a small factory of sunlight. From the moment it unfurls in spring, its task is clear. It must convert light into life. Inside its cells lies chlorophyll, a green pigment with the ability to capture energy from the sun. Chlorophyll absorbs red and blue wavelengths while reflecting green. This is why summer forests feel saturated in that familiar luminous color. With captured sunlight, the leaf performs photosynthesis, a process that transforms carbon dioxide and water into sugar and oxygen. This reaction is the foundation of nearly all life on Earth, feeding ecosystems from the smallest insect to the largest mammal. Through spring and summer, this process remains continuous. Each leaf functions like a solar panel. Each tree becomes a living network of energy conversion, creating nourishment for itself and for the organisms that rely on it. But as the year edges toward autumn, sunlight weakens, days grow shorter, nights grow colder. The balance between energy gained and energy lost begins to tip. The tree senses these changes through hormones and the measurement of daylight. This sensitivity is known as photoperiodism. As the hours of light diminish, chemical signals travel through the tree's tissues, preparing it for the coming winter. For deciduous trees, winter brings significant challenges. Cold temperatures can freeze the water inside delicate leaf cells, causing them to rupture. To survive, the tree must act before the frost arrives. It begins by gently slowing its internal processes and shutting down the engine of photosynthesis. Chlorophyll, the molecule of summer, begins to break apart. Its vivid green fades gradually. As it disappears, hidden pigments begin to reveal themselves, pigments that were always there but masked by chlorophyll's intensity. Carotenoids, the same pigments that give carrots their orange and corn their yellow, emerge first. They create the golden glow that sweeps through forests, turning them into seas of warm color. These pigments are stable. They linger even as chlorophyll falls away, illuminating the forest with tones of honey and amber. In some trees, another pigment appears later in the season, anthocyanins. Unlike carotenoids, these red and purple molecules are produced as autumn advances. They arise when the leaf's sugars become concentrated and light levels drop, creating the deep burgundies and scarlets seen in maples and dogwoods. Scientists believe anthocyanins serve multiple purposes. They may protect the leaf from light damage while nutrients are withdrawn. They may deter insects by signaling that the leaf is no longer nutritious. Whatever their function, they bring vivid reds that transform entire hillsides into tapestries of fire. Every hue carries a chemical story: yellow from carotene, orange from xanthophyll, red from anthocyanin, brown from tannins, which remain after the pigments have faded. This palette is the visible expression of chemistry unfolding inside every leaf. What we see as beauty is, in truth, a careful dismantling. The tree is reclaiming nutrients, pulling sugars back into its branches and trunk for the winter ahead. Through microscopic channels, energy moves inward as the leaf prepares to let go. At the base of each leaf stem, a separation layer forms. These cells gradually seal the connection between leaf and branch. When that layer is complete, the leaf no longer holds tightly. A single gust of wind is enough to send it drifting downward. From a distance, this fall may look like loss, but to the tree, it is wisdom. Shedding leaves protects it from cold, prevents water loss, and reduces the weight of snow. It is not death, it is retreat, a careful withdrawal into stillness. On the forest floor, another transformation begins. Fallen leaves become food. Microbes and fungi break them down, releasing minerals and carbon back into the soil. The energy captured by sunlight months before returns to the cycle, ready for new life in the spring. In this way, the colors of autumn are not an ending. They are the visible threshold between seasons, a moment of transition between growth and rest, a balance point in the long narrative of the forest. When we walk through a forest in autumn, the light feels different. It becomes softer, lower, and warmer, as though the sun itself is exhaling after the long brightness of summer. This shift in light is not imagination. It is the angle of the earth tilting gently away from the sun, causing the rays to travel farther through the atmosphere before reaching the ground. As the light spreads through more air, shorter wavelengths scatter, allowing longer golden tones to dominate. This is why autumn afternoons glow with a quality that feels nostalgic, as if the world has wrapped itself in a veil of amber. Even the shadows change. They stretch and soften, moving like slow waves across the forest floor. Under this gentler light, every leaf seems to carry its own small lantern, each one lit by the chemistry unfolding within. This soft glow is one of the reasons autumn feels calm. The entire landscape enters a quieter mood. Colors deepen, sounds lower, the air becomes stiller. Nature prepares for the long rest of winter with a grace that invites us to slow down as well. Yet beneath this calm lies a flurry of microscopic activity. Inside each leaf, molecules shift and rearrange as chlorophyll declines. Proteins break apart. Sugars move inward. Pigments reveal themselves in a last expression of color before the leaf's journey ends. The forest is not dying. It is reorganizing. The brilliance we see is the outward sign of internal conservation, a precise sequence of changes that have evolved over millions of years. Every tree performs its own version of this sequence, timed perfectly to its species and environment. Some trees release their leaves all at once. Others shed them slowly, one by one, letting color drift down like quiet rainfall. The pattern depends on genetics, climate, and the tree's overall health. On the ground, these fallen leaves form an insulating layer. They trap warmth, shelter insects, and protect seeds that will wait through winter. The forest floor becomes a cradle for next year's growth, even as it appears to rest. The sound of walking through these leaves is one of autumn's most familiar voices. A soft crackle, a gentle rustle, Each step disrupts layers of color returning to the earth. Beneath our feet, decomposition begins, slow and steady, guided by organisms we cannot see. Fungi extend threads through the leaves, weaving networks that break down cellulose and lignin. Microbes multiply in the damp spaces between layers. Small insects burrow and feed, turning fallen leaves into soil rich with nutrients. This transformation is as essential as photosynthesis. The nutrients within the leaves will rise again in spring, carried upward by roots into new buds and branches. What falls does not vanish. It becomes the foundation for new life. Even the scent of autumn comes from this breakdown. As leaves decompose, they release compounds that smell of earth, wood, and quiet rain. These aromas signal the presence of microbial life returning matter to the soil. During this time, animals adjust their behavior as well. Squirrels gather acorns. Birds migrate. Deer become more active at dawn and dusk. The forest is alive with preparation, each creature following instincts shaped by the turning of seasons. The cooling temperatures also influence the forest's smallest inhabitants. Insects reduce activity or seek shelter. Some lay eggs that will remain dormant through winter, ready to hatch when warmth returns. Trees, too, show signs of readiness. As sap thickens and flows more slowly, the entire organism enters a state similar to sleep. Metabolism decreases, respiration slows, energy is conserved for the season ahead. This slowing is not a withdrawal from life, but a strategic pause. Winter demands conservation, not activity. The tree's survival depends on embracing this stillness, surrendering to what the season requires. Humans feel this change as well. The cooler air and earlier nights create a kind of introspective quiet. We are creatures of the same earth, shaped by the same cycles, even if we often forget how deeply we are connected to them. Walking through an autumn forest can rekindle this awareness. The colors invite reflection. The light encourages calm. The slow fall of leaves reminds us that letting go is part of every life, and that release can be beautiful rather than sorrowful. In the chemistry of color, we see the chemistry of time. Each pigment tells us something about the season, the weather, and the internal life of the tree. Together, they form a language written in light and matter, one that has shaped landscapes for countless generations. Through this language, the forest communicates without words. It shows us how change can be gentle. It shows us how transition can be luminous. It shows us that even in moments of decline, there can be profound beauty and meaning. As autumn deepens, the forest continues its gradual shift from activity to rest. The sunlight becomes even more angled, touching the world with long rays that stretch across branches and fallen leaves. What was once a canopy of dense green now reveals open spaces where light can slip through, creating patterns of gold on the ground. In these spaces, the forest feels both larger and quieter. Sounds travel farther. A distant bird call echoes between the trunks. A squirrel's movement can be heard long before it appears. The forest breathes in slower rhythm, its energy turning inward as temperatures continue to drop. Among the branches, the changes in color continue their progression. Some leaves reach their brightest moment before falling. Others fade gently from yellow to brown, as though stepping down from the stage. Each tree follows its own schedule, guided by genetics and the signals flowing through its tissues. Maples blaze with red. Birches shimmer in soft yellow. Oaks hold their brown leaves longer, creating a textured backdrop for the brighter colors around them. The forest becomes a living tapestry, each species contributing its thread to the seasonal design. But the season is not only about trees. The understory plants, ferns, and shrubs also respond to the cooling air. Some retreat entirely, drawing energy into their roots. Others release seeds that will lie dormant until spring. Moss remains green, thriving in the increased moisture that autumn brings. Its softness spreads across rocks and fallen logs, giving the forest a sense of quiet continuity, even as the leaves change above. In this balance, the forest feels layered, each level moving through its own cycle. Animals sense these changes with precision. Birds begin their migrations, leaving behind forests that no longer offer the insects or warmth they need. Their calls become fewer as the days pass, replaced by the subtle movements of animals preparing for winter. Chipmunks gather seeds. Mice build nests beneath roots and fallen branches. Deer grow thicker coats, their silhouettes appearing more frequently at the edge of the forest as they search for food in the shortening daylight. Some animals, like bears, enter a period of intense feeding. They store fat for the months of sleep ahead, guided by instincts that align with the turning of the year. Their activity is a final burst before the deep quiet of winter settles over the land. Insects prepare in ways less visible but equally remarkable. Some lay eggs beneath bark, others burrow into the soil. A few survive the winter by producing molecules that act like natural antifreeze, preventing ice crystals from forming inside their cells. As these preparations unfold, the forest takes on a transitional beauty. Wind gathers leaves into swirling patterns. Each gust sends a cascade of color drifting downward, turning the air into a gentle dance of amber and red. The sound of falling leaves is almost silent, yet the movement is constant. One by one, the trees release what they no longer need. The forest seems to sigh, letting go in a way that feels effortless and wise. This release is a reminder that nature rarely resists change. It adapts, adjusts, and accepts the rhythms that keep life in balance. The trees do not cling to their leaves when conditions shift. They trust the cycle that has sustained them for generations. Humans often hold on far more tightly, reluctant to let go of what feels familiar. But in these woods, among the steady falling of leaves, we can sense another way of being, one where release is part of renewal and where every ending carries the seed of a beginning. Even the air carries this message. It smells of earth, cool water, and the early hints of frost. It is a scent that tells the body to slow down, to breathe more deeply, to match the quieter pace of the natural world. When we pause in this season, we feel something ancient stirring, a recognition that our own rhythms once aligned with these same patterns of light and temperature. Autumn awakens a memory of connection, reminding us that we, too, are shaped by the cycle of time. As the sun lowers, the atmosphere glows in hues that seem almost unreal. Light filters through the thinning canopy, catching particles of moisture and illuminating the forest floor in shifting waves. This light, so characteristic of autumn, is what gives the season its contemplative mood. It transforms ordinary landscapes into scenes that feel sacred, inviting reflection rather than observation. And in its glow, the forest becomes a space where both nature and the mind find quiet. By the time evening arrives, the world has changed again. the temperature drops quickly. The colors dim. Animals retreat into burrows, nests, and sheltered spaces. The trees stand tall and patient, their branches bare in some places and glowing with late color in others. In this combination of presence and release, the forest enters the threshold between seasons, preparing for the rest that winter requires. As night approaches, the last light of day settles gently across the forest. Colors that burned bright in the afternoon now soften into deeper tones, as if the trees are dimming their own lanterns. The sky shifts from pale blue to a gradual blend of rose and violet, and the air becomes colder with each passing minute. In this fading light, individual leaves stand out more clearly. A single red maple leaf glows against a background of dark trunks. A yellow birch leaf trembles at the edge of a branch, held by only the thinnest stem. Soon, even these last bright fragments will loosen and fall, joining the growing layer of color on the forest floor. Though the day feels complete, the forest is not empty of motion. Owls wake in the high branches, their eyes adapted to the dimness. Small mammals stir beneath the leaves, relying on sound more than sight. The rhythm of life continues, simply shifting from the creatures of daylight to those of the night. For the trees, however, night deepens the sense of rest that autumn has already begun. Their work of growth has slowed. Their exchange of water and nutrients has eased into a gentler pace. What once surged with the urgency of spring now moves with the patience of a season that understands the value of stillness. Inside the trunk, reserves of sugar and nutrients are stored safely away from the cold that will soon arrive. The tree stands grounded, its roots extending into the soil, drawing stability from the hidden world beneath the surface. This hidden world is as important to the story of autumn as the colors above. Fungi form partnerships with roots, trading nutrients and water in exchange for the sugars the tree produces. These underground networks help the forest remain resilient when conditions become difficult. As leaves fall and decompose, they feed this system. Their minerals join the soil. Their carbon returns to cycles that will one day shape new leaves, new branches, and new seeds. In this way, autumn teaches us that endings are not empty. They are full of preparation, recycling, and quiet support for what comes next. The forest does not rush this process. It allows each step to unfold at its own pace, according to temperature, light, and the history of the land. When we pause to listen, we can almost sense this steady patience. The forest at dusk feels like a place between breaths, held for a moment in balance. It is not yet winter, yet no longer summer. It is the narrow bridge where one season hands its work to the next. This bridge exists not only in nature, but also in our lives. We move through seasons of growth, seasons of harvest, and seasons of rest. Often, we try to hold on to one stage, resisting the passage into the next. But the forest shows us another way, one that trusts the rhythm of change. Here, among the falling leaves, letting go is a natural act. The tree does not argue with shortening days. It does not ask the frost to stay away. Instead, it responds with wisdom, drawing inward what it needs and releasing what it no longer requires. The chemistry that drives this transformation may be precise and measurable, but the feeling it creates is something more. We experience it as calm, as reflection, as a softening of time while we walk beneath branches that have begun to bare themselves to the sky. In the glow of this season, science and emotion move together. Pigments shift, light bends, temperatures fall. At the same time, memory awakens, and the mind drifts to thoughts of change, of cycles, of what it means to prepare and to rest. Autumn is the forest explaining the passage of time in a language made of color and air. Every leaf that changes is a small sentence in that story, telling us that all things move and all things rise and fall in their moment. In the chapters ahead, we will look more closely at the chemistry and physics behind these transformations, exploring how light, temperature, and pigments work together to paint the world each year. For now, imagine standing at the edge of the forest as night fully arrives. The last colors fade into shadow. The air is cool against your skin, and the scent of leaves and earth surrounds you. Somewhere above, a final leaf lets go and drifts downward, turning slowly as it falls. A quiet symbol of release in the ongoing cycle of life. As autumn unfolds, every leaf in the forest begins a quiet conversation with the sun. It is a dialogue written not in words but in wavelengths of light, a slow exchange that tells each tree when the season is preparing to turn. Though we may see only color and shadow, the leaves are reading signals, measuring the length of daylight with remarkable precision. It often seems as though cold temperatures are the first sign of autumn, but the true trigger comes earlier. The earliest message is light. This message arrives long before frost, whispered through the chemistry of the leaf itself. Inside every leaf are receptors designed to sense the changing balance of sunlight. These sensitive molecules, known as phytochromes, measure the ratio of red to far red wavelengths in the sun's spectrum. As the days shorten and the sun sinks lower in the sky, this ratio shifts in a pattern that the tree can detect with astonishing accuracy. To the tree, these changes are unmistakable. Fewer hours of daylight signal that the growing season is coming to an end. The leaf begins adjusting its internal processes, preparing to step back from its summer production and move toward conservation. Hormones act as the messengers in this transformation. They travel through the plant's vascular network, carrying information from leaf to branch, from branch to trunk. Among these hormones is auxin, a chemical that helps regulate growth, movement of nutrients, and the strength of the leaf's attachment to its stem. As daylight decreases, auxin levels slowly drop. This reduction tells the tree to begin forming the separation layer, a thin barrier of cork-like cells that will eventually allow the leaf to detach without harming the branch. It is the beginning of letting go, performed with exquisite care. At the same time, other hormones rise. One of these is abscisic acid, which signals the closing of tiny pores on the leaf's surface called stomata. These pores normally allow gas exchange during photosynthesis, but as the season shifts, closing them helps the leaf conserve water and slow its metabolism. In this subtle choreography, chemistry becomes a timekeeper. The tree cannot see the lowering sun, but its molecules understand the changing rhythm of light. It responds not through thought, but through an ancient biological memory, a pattern refined over countless autumns. Temperature adds a second influence. Cool nights slow the chemical reactions inside the leaf, preventing sugars from breaking down quickly. When daylight returns, these sugars accumulate and interact with pigments, deepening the colors we see across the forest. This is why the most vivid autumns occur during years with warm, sunny days and crisp, clear nights. The combination allows leaves to build up sugar during the day and hold it through the night, fueling the creation of bright pigments. Too much rain can soften this effect. Clouds reduce available sunlight, slowing photosynthesis and weakening the pigments. Wind also plays a role, shaking leaves loose before their colors fully develop, ending the display before it reaches its peak. Every autumn is a collaboration between chemistry and weather. No two seasons ever create the same palette. Each year paints the forest with a signature unique to its combination of light, temperature, and air. At the level of the leaf, the transformation is simple, yet precise. As chlorophyll breaks down, the nutrients inside it are reclaimed by the tree. Nitrogen, magnesium, and other elements move back into the branches and trunk, where they will be stored through the winter. Chlorophyll itself disassembles into smaller molecules, losing its ability to absorb sunlight. As the green fades, pigments that were present all along begin to shine through. These include carotenoids and xanthophylls, responsible for yellows and soft oranges, stable pigments that resist light damage even when chlorophyll vanishes. Their glow becomes the backbone of the autumn palette, especially later in the season when red pigments have faded. Maples and aspens shimmer with gold because of these durable molecules lingering in the leaf. Anthocyanins, the pigments that create reds and purples, behave differently. They are not always present from the start of the season. Instead, they are produced in the final days of the leaf's life, an unexpected burst of color just before release. Their creation depends on sugar levels, temperature, and pH. In acidic conditions, anthocyanins appear vibrant red. In neutral conditions, they shift toward purple. These pigments are delicate, forming only under specific conditions, which is why red trees vary so widely from year to year. Scientists still debate why trees invest energy in producing a pigment so late in the season. One leading theory is protection, suggesting that the red tones act as a shield against intense sunlight, helping the leaf withdraw nutrients safely. Another theory proposes communication, hinting that red leaves send signals to insects, warning them that the tree is healthy and not an ideal place to lay eggs. Whatever purpose anthocyanins serve, their effect on the landscape is unmistakable. Hillsides glow with reds that seem almost illuminated from within. The forest becomes a mosaic of shifting tones, each tree responding to the season in its own precise rhythm. As these pigments rise and fall, the forest floor becomes part of the transformation as well. Beneath the canopy, fallen leaves gather in thick layers that hold moisture and insulate the soil from the cooling air. Microbial life awakens almost immediately. Bacteria and fungi begin to break down the fallen leaves, using enzymes to dismantle cellulose and lignin into simpler compounds. Each leaf becomes a small reservoir of nutrients, waiting to be released back into the ecosystem. This decomposition is not decay in the gloomy sense. It is transformation. Sunlight captured months earlier now returns to the soil as nourishment for the next cycle of growth. In this quiet exchange, the forest recycles itself with remarkable efficiency. The forest floor becomes warmer than one might expect. Microbial activity generates heat, creating a subtle layer of warmth that persists even as the air above turns chilly. Under blankets of leaves, insects find shelter. Fungi spread their threads and seeds wait patiently for spring. Even in winter, beneath snow and frost, these processes continue at a slow but determined pace. Life beneath the surface rarely stops entirely. It simply shifts into a lower gear, conserving energy while continuing essential work. Above the ground, the trees move toward dormancy. Sap thickens, metabolism slows, respiration reduces to a fraction of its summer intensity. Yet deep within the roots, energy remains stored in the form of starch, ready to fuel the next burst of growth when the thaw arrives. To the human eye, this period may look like silence, but within the cells of the roots and branches, slow pulses of chemical activity continue. It is a strategic quiet, a conservation of strength before the demands of spring return. Plants have evolved these patterns over millions of years. Dormancy is not an interruption of life, but a kind of seasonal wisdom, allowing the organism to survive cold that would otherwise cause damage. By reducing water movement and slowing cellular function, the tree shields itself from freezing temperatures. The season becomes a lesson in energy management. All that the tree gathered in summer is saved and protected. It does nothing unnecessary. It focuses on preservation, a reminder that rest can be an act of strength rather than retreat. Humans often sense a similar shift. As daylight shortens and evenings cool, a quiet introspection rises. The pace of the world feels different, as if inviting us to match the gentler rhythm of the natural landscape. In the forest, this introspective quality is amplified by sound. Leaf fall is nearly silent, but the subtle rustle of branches and the distant call of migrating birds create a soundtrack that feels meditative. Every noise seems to carry a long echo through the cooling air. The thinning canopy allows more light to reach the forest floor. Rays of sunlight stretch farther between the trunks, illuminating patches of moss, fungus, and late-blooming plants that were hidden during summer. This increased light triggers new cycles of growth among the smallest inhabitants of the forest. Some fungi take advantage of this shift, releasing spores into the air. Others break down organic matter at extraordinary speed, turning fallen debris into fertile soil. With every passing week, the forest floor becomes more vibrant in ways that differ from the colorful canopy above. Animals read these signals with precision. As the canopy thins and temperatures drop, migration begins for many bird species. Their internal clocks respond to the same cues that trigger changes in trees, creating synchronization across the living world. Mammals adjust as well. Squirrels store food. Deer move in patterns shaped by shifting daylight. Even insects prepare for winter by burrowing, nesting, or entering dormant states that allow them to survive extreme cold. The entire forest responds to the chemistry of autumn. Every creature, every root, and every leaf is guided by the interplay between light, temperature, and time. It is a collaboration that creates the season's unique atmosphere, a harmony of biological rhythms that unfold with quiet precision. From a human perspective, the scene carries emotion. The colors evoke memory. The cooling air suggests reflection. The gentle fall of leaves feels like a reminder that letting go can be natural, effortless, and necessary. Yet beneath this emotional layer lies pure science. Pigments shift. Hormones rise and fall. Temperature alters reaction rates. Every detail fits into a system that has adapted through millions of years of trial and success. This combination of emotion and biology makes autumn a season unlike any other. It reminds us that understanding a process does not diminish its beauty. If anything, it deepens our appreciation for the complexity behind what we see. As autumn continues its slow advance, the forest enters a stage where light, chemistry, and weather weave together in delicate balance. The leaves still hold their colors, yet subtle changes signal that the peak of transformation is moving toward its final phase. The sun sits lower in the sky now, and its rays filter through branches at increasingly shallow angles. This low light creates long shadows and illuminates the autumn palette from the side, giving every leaf a soft outline and a glow that seems to rise from within. As chlorophyll breaks down further, the inner chemistry of each leaf becomes more exposed. Carotenoids remain bright, their stable molecules able to linger long after others have faded. Anthocyanins, those vibrant reds and purples produced late in the season, reach their deepest tones during this period. They respond to fluctuations in temperature and sugar concentration, shifting subtly from day to day. This is the moment when the forest often reaches its greatest variety of color. Some leaves remain green, others glow yellow or orange. A few shine with scarlet intensity that lasts only a short time. To walk beneath such a canopy is to move through a living painting, one that changes with every breath of wind and every passing cloud. No 2 seconds look the same. Within the leaf, however, the process keeps unfolding. The separation layer at the base of the stem grows thicker, gradually weakening the leaf's hold on the branch. This process is controlled with extraordinary precision. The tree ensures that the leaf detaches at the perfect moment, preventing damage while safeguarding its own tissues from frost or moisture loss. Once the leaf falls, it becomes part of a new cycle on the forest floor. Here, physics begins to shape the landscape. Wind groups leaves into sweeping patterns, forming drifts against logs and stones. Moisture collects among them, creating small pockets of warmth, where insects and fungi begin the first stages of decomposition. The structure of the leaf determines how it breaks down. Thin leaves from birches decompose quickly. Thicker leaves from oaks take longer, their sturdy cell walls resisting decay until fungi and bacteria gradually dismantle them. This variation creates a layered forest floor, a mixture of quick and slow decomposition that provides stable nourishment through the entire cold season. Even in areas where snow piles deep, decomposition continues in the sheltered warmth beneath the surface. During this time, the forest enters a kind of acoustic stillness. Sounds travel more clearly through the cooling air. A single leaf drifting down can be heard if the woods are quiet enough. The gentle sound of small animals foraging in the underbrush becomes more distinct as the lush vegetation of summer thins. Birdsong changes as well. Many species have already migrated, leaving behind birds whose calls are simpler and more spaced apart. Crows gather in groups, calling across the treetops with voices that echo through the thinning branches. Owls begin their twilight activity earlier, taking advantage of the longer nights. Each sound becomes part of a calmer rhythm, one shaped by shortening days and lengthening darkness. Temperature influences every layer of this process. Cool nights concentrate sugars in the leaves. Warm afternoons encourage remaining photosynthesis. If the nights grow too cold too quickly, cells within the leaf can be damaged. causing pigments to fade or leaves to drop early. If they remain warm for too long, the signal to form the separation layer is delayed, affecting the timing of leaf fall throughout the forest. Because of this delicate balance, each autumn carries its own signature. Some years are rich with red, others offer more gold. Some pass quickly, leaves falling before they fully reach their brightest tone. These variations come from subtle shifts in sunlight, air moisture, day length, and soil temperature. The forest reads all these signals and responds as a whole, creating a seasonal landscape that feels both familiar and completely new each year. Humans often sense this moment intuitively. The cooling air invites deeper breaths. The softened light encourages slowness, pitch 1%. Walking through the woods becomes a kind of meditation. Our senses sharpen. Small details emerge: the scent of damp soil, the flicker of a leaf catching sun, the muted step on a blanket of fallen color. Autumn heightens awareness, drawing attention to the small transitions that shape the natural world. It reminds us that change rarely happens all at once. It unfolds in stages, each one essential to the next. In the forest, we see how transformation can be both active and peaceful. It is movement without urgency, surrender without loss. The trees do not resist the coming cold. They adapt with clarity and calm. As the season moves toward its final descent, the forest enters a stage of gentle release. Leaves that once held tight now respond to the faintest breeze, drifting downward in soft spirals that brighten the air with motion. Each falling leaf carries its own history of sunlight and chemistry, its pigments shaped by months of quiet labor. As they settle on the forest floor, they begin the next phase of the seasonal cycle, becoming part of the foundation that will nourish life when warmth returns. On still days, the fall of a single leaf can be seen with clarity. It turns slowly, as though examining each angle of its brief journey through open air. On windy days, the sky becomes a dance of shifting color. Leaves travel in wide arcs, rising and falling like small birds before resting in drifts that form along paths and stones. Stillness returns once the breeze settles. The forest floor becomes a soft mosaic, muted in color but rich in texture, a living blanket that sighs under each step. This blanket insulates the soil, slowing the loss of heat and protecting the delicate roots of trees and plants. Beneath it, countless organisms move through hidden corridors, processing the fallen leaves in steady quiet. Fungi extend networks of threads that weave through the decaying layers. Their enzymes work in silence, breaking large molecules into smaller ones that can be absorbed back into the soil. Bacteria flourish in moist pockets where water collects among the leaves. Small insects join the process, feeding on softened tissue and aiding the breakdown that returns nutrients to the forest. What appears still to us is alive with activity. Even in colder weather, decomposition continues at a slow but persistent pace, driven by life that thrives in the shadows. As this transformation unfolds below, the world above continues to quiet. Trees hold fewer leaves with each passing day, revealing their architecture with an elegance usually hidden by the fullness of summer. Branches that once appeared crowded now show space and pattern. The sky becomes more visible through their frameworks, a lacework of limbs reaching toward the soft light. Birds perch on these bare branches, calling out in simpler songs. Many species have already migrated, leaving behind those that can survive the cold months ahead. Squirrels make final adjustments to their caches of acorns and seeds. Deer travel more often at dawn and dusk, feeding on what remains before winter begins to tighten its hold. Even the air carries a quiet message. The scent of soil becomes deeper. Moisture settles earlier each evening. The forest breathes in a slower pattern, as though preparing for long rest. This stage of autumn is one of balance. Color and silence share the landscape. Movement becomes more measured. It is the moment between the bright crescendo of early fall and the deep stillness of winter, a place the season lingers briefly before continuing its calm descent. In this pause, the forest feels especially open, inviting reflection. In the early evening, when the sun lowers behind distant hills, the last light catches the edges of the remaining leaves. They shimmer with tones that shift from warm gold to soft brown, colors that seem to hold the memory of sunlight. This golden hour of autumn has a distinct stillness. Shadows lengthen, air cools. The forest becomes both calm and alert, aware of the coming night. When darkness settles fully, the transformation continues unseen. The chemistry that began with changing light now moves into its final stage. Nutrients travel back into branches and roots. The last sugars in the leaves complete their journey. The separation layer prepares to release any leaf still holding on. By morning, the forest will have changed again. A few more leaves will have fallen. A few more branches will stand bare. Yet nothing about this progression feels abrupt. Autumn unfolds patiently, guided by the physics of light and the chemistry of life, moving at a pace nature has honored for ages. In this gentle rhythm, science and emotion meet. Understanding the processes does not lessen their beauty, it deepens it. For when we walk beneath the thinning canopy, we are surrounded by information written in color and scent. Each leaf is a message from the tree. Each change is a sentence in the story of the season. In scientific language, this is senescence controlled by light and temperature. In human language, it is the art of letting go. Both describe the same truth. Both help us understand why autumn feels both peaceful and profound, a season shaped by balance between retreat and renewal. In the next chapter, we follow the journey of these fallen leaves into the deeper layers of soil, where decay becomes rebirth and the forest prepares for the long sleep of winter. For now, imagine the quiet of an autumn night, the colors resting on the ground, and the air filled with the soft promise of change, continuing in silence. By late autumn, the forest floor is thick with fallen leaves. Each one is a remnant of light, a quiet page from the book of summer closing gently against the earth. What appears as a simple carpet of color is in truth a layered record of seasons, sunlight, and growth stretching back through the months. Above, the canopy has thinned. Branches once hidden now stand in elegant patterns against the sky. Sunlight filters down where shadows once lived, touching moss, bark, and soil with a gentle warmth that feels almost reflective. What looks like stillness is the beginning of another transformation. For the forest, nothing is ever lost. Every leaf that falls becomes part of a larger cycle, the quiet chemistry of decay that sustains all life to come. Autumn may appear as an ending, but beneath the surface it is rich with beginnings. As the first rains of autumn fall, moisture seeps into the growing carpet of leaves. Their surfaces soften. Their colors dim from gold to brown, from red to rust, each leaf losing its brightness as its structure begins to relax. Soon, the forest awakens with invisible activity. Microorganisms rise into motion, responding to the moisture and warmth trapped among the fallen layers. Bacteria and fungi, unseen but essential, begin their patient work. These organisms are nature's recyclers. They feed on what once lived, breaking down complex molecules into simpler ones. To them, a leaf is food, a reservoir of carbon, nitrogen, and trace minerals waiting to be returned to the soil. Their enzymes begin cutting apart cellulose and lignin, the fibers that once gave the leaf structure and strength. As these bonds loosen, the leaf becomes lighter, softer, and more permeable to air and moisture. As the molecular bonds break, carbon dioxide is released back into the atmosphere. This is the same carbon the tree captured months earlier through the work of summer sunlight. The circle closes gracefully. Decay becomes a return, not a loss. In this way, the forest stays in balance, neither hoarding nor wasting, but moving energy from one form to another. Fungi are among the most important players in this transformation. Their thread-like structures, called hyphae, spread through the soil like pale, luminous veins beneath the forest floor. Together, these threads form vast networks known as mycelium. Through them, information and nutrients flow with subtle precision, linking plants, microbes, and roots in a shared web of life. Through these networks, nutrients travel from one organism to another. A fallen leaf in one place may nourish a tree meters away, channeled through a partnership older than the forest itself. Scientists sometimes call this the wood wide web. It is the communication and exchange system of the forest, a hidden architecture that binds living things together beneath the surface. When a tree drops its leaves, it is not discarding waste. It is feeding this underground network, offering its own nutrients to maintain the health of the forest community. The leaf that falls today enriches the soil, supports microbes, feeds worms and insects, and in time nourishes the tree itself. Autumn becomes an act of generosity, a contribution to the cycle that sustains all future growth. The speed of this transformation depends on many factors. Temperature, moisture, and the chemistry of the leaves themselves all play a role. Thinner leaves from birch and poplar decompose quickly, collapsing into the soil within weeks. Oak leaves, rich with tannins, resist decay for far longer. They form the protective mulch that shelters the soil through winter, insulating roots and slowing the loss of moisture. The sound of walking through fallen leaves, that familiar soft crackle, is the sound of structure breaking down. It is the sound of air entering spaces once sealed, of fibers loosening as they begin their return to the earth. Every step we take quickens the process, creating tiny fractures that allow moisture and microorganisms to enter more easily. In this gentle way, even our presence contributes to the transformation taking place. As decomposition deepens, earthworms join the work. They pull fragments of leaves underground, digesting them and blending them with soil. Their movement aerates the earth, carving tiny tunnels that allow air and water to circulate. The forest soil becomes a living sponge, full of breath and pathways that sustain roots and microbes alike. This living soil, dark and rich, takes on a texture unlike anything else in nature. It holds moisture, breathes easily and supports an entire universe of organisms that thrive in its shelter. Rate 100%, pitch 1%. This rich material is called humus. The word shares its root with the word human, both meaning of the earth, a reminder that our lives are tied to the same soil that feeds the forest. Within humus lies fertility, resilience, and the memory of countless seasons past. It is the archive of the forest, holding the remains of leaves that fell long before our time. If we could observe the process of decay over months, we would see layers shifting from bright color to muted tones, from structure to softness. Edges curl, pigments fade, and the leaf becomes less object and more essence, until it blends completely with the forest floor. Even in winter, beneath crusts of frost and blankets of snow, the transformation continues. The soil below rarely freezes entirely. Microbes keep moving, releasing small but steady amounts of heat from their metabolism. These tiny pockets of warmth form microclimates where life persists through the cold, sheltered from the harsh air above. Under this insulation, a quiet ecosystem survives winter, preparing for the moment when sunlight returns. When spring arrives, the soil is renewed. It holds the minerals released from thousands of leaves, mixed and transformed by fungi, bacteria, and earthworms. Seeds that rested through winter now use this nourishment to wake. Roots from every tree reach downward, drawing strength from the remains of last autumn's brilliance. Thus, the leaves that fall today become the blossoms of tomorrow. This cycle is not poetic metaphor, but biological fact, woven into the survival of forests across the world. From a scientific view, this exchange of matter and energy forms the foundation of ecosystems. It is the closed loop that allows life on Earth to endure without ever running out of resources. The process can be described in equations: carbon in, carbon out. Molecules break apart, bonds reform, energy shifts from one state to another. Yet when we see it in motion, it feels almost musical, a rhythm rather than a calculation. Every molecule finds its way back into movement. Nothing in the forest is wasted. Nothing remains still for long. Among the decomposers are unsung heroes of the forest. Springtails, mites, and millipedes feed on fragments invisible to the human eye. Pitch 1%. Each contributes its part to the grand choreography of decay, turning the forest floor into a living engine that powers the growth above. Their actions may be tiny, but the effects are immense. A single handful of forest soil can contain more living organisms than there are humans on Earth. This diversity makes the soil resilient, able to withstand drought, flood, and cold. Each organism fills its own role. Some break down proteins, others break down cellulose. Some burrow and aerate the soil. Together, they create a system that maintains itself with astonishing precision. To walk in the autumn woods is to walk upon generations. The ground beneath us is not just dirt. It is history, compressed and living, shaped by the traces of the seasons that came before. Every forest carries within its soil the memory of storms, of droughts, of springs, of the many cycles of growth and decay that have shaped its landscape. To touch that soil is to touch time itself. With each passing day of late autumn, the leaves that remain on the ground change further. Their veins become more pronounced as the softer tissues break down, leaving lace-like patterns that resemble delicate skeletons. In places where moisture collects, the leaves decompose quickly, becoming dark patches rich with fungal threads. In drier areas, they remain crisp for longer, slowly curling at the edges as air enters their fibers. The forest floor becomes a patchwork of transformation, each space moving at its own pace, shaped by light, temperature, and moisture. Some sections fade into soil within weeks. Others persist through snow and ice, breaking down only when warmth returns. This variety ensures that nutrients are released gradually over time, maintaining a steady supply for roots and microbes rather than a sudden burst. The forest thrives not by speed, but by patience. As we stand among these changes, it becomes clear that decay is not a lesser stage of life. It is life continuing in a different form, guided by organisms that work in silence. What appears to fade is simply becoming something new. The forest does not see loss. It sees movement. It sees continuity. As late autumn progresses, the forest begins to show more of its structure. With many leaves already on the ground, the branches above reveal their shapes, their angles, and the way they stretch toward the dimming light. Where summer once created dense layers of green, the trees now stand in a kind of quiet openness. Their silhouettes become clearer, allowing the land to breathe in a wider rhythm as light travels through spaces that were once hidden. Down below, the forest floor continues its transformation. The mix of fresh leaves, partly decomposed fragments, and darker humus forms a complex mosaic, each layer representing a different moment in the cycle. Freshly fallen leaves rest on top, their colors only just beginning to fade. Beneath them lie leaves from earlier in the season, already softened and spotted, with the first signs of fungal growth. Deeper still, older layers merge with the soil itself. Patterns blur, edges dissolve. The boundary between leaf and earth becomes impossible to distinguish. This layering effect creates a living archive of the season, a slow accumulation that tells the story of the forest in textures rather than words. Each layer holds its own community of organisms working in synchrony. Moisture plays a vital role in this hidden world. After rainfall, the leaves drink deeply, becoming heavier and more pliable, ready for decomposition. Water moves between the layers, carrying dissolved nutrients downward. This movement acts like a silent river beneath the canopy, feeding microbes and roots with the remains of earlier months. With increased moisture, fungi flourish. Their mycelium spreads like pale threads through the damp layers, forming networks that grow in complexity as autumn continues. Some fungi focus on breaking down cellulose. Others specialize in lignin. Together, they form a complete system that leaves nothing unused. If we could see the forest floor from below, it would look like a web of glowing lines, each representing fungal pathways, transporting nutrients from one place to another. This movement supports not only the decomposers but also the trees standing above. Roots and fungi work in partnership, exchanging resources. Sugars move from the roots to the fungi, while minerals flow from the fungi back to the roots. It is a mutual agreement that strengthens the entire ecosystem. Among the leaf litter, small creatures perform their part in the cycle. Beetles, springtails, and tiny mites roam through the layers, feeding on fragments too small for the eye to notice. Their movements break apart the leaves, increasing surface area for microbes to colonize. A single millipede can process large amounts of material, pushing decomposition forward with steady dedication. Birds also interact with the forest floor. They scratch through leaves in search of insects, revealing darker soil beneath. Each disturbance, each movement accelerates decomposition by lifting and mixing the layers. Even the simplest action has an effect on the cycle. Earthworms remain among the most influential members of this hidden world. They pull leaves underground, digest them, and blend them with minerals. Their tunnels allow water and air to reach deeper layers of soil. Without this aeration, the ground would become compacted, limiting root growth and slowing decomposition. This continuous movement means that the forest floor is always changing. Nothing stays in one state for long. The transformation may be slow from our perspective, but to the tiny organisms living within it, the forest floor is alive with opportunity. Every new leaf is a feast. Every fallen branch is a shelter. Meanwhile, the air grows cooler. Moisture becomes more frequent. Nights lengthen and the rhythms of the forest adjust again. Animals that remain active in late autumn move with increasing purpose. Food becomes more scarce, and many creatures gather what they can before winter settles. Birds search the leaf litter for insects hidden below the surface. Mice collect seeds buried beneath the softer soil. Each movement stirs up the ground, helping mix and break apart the layers of decomposition. Even the shifting weight of larger animals affects the cycle. A deer stepping on a mound of leaves compresses it, bringing layers into closer contact and speeding the process of decay. Light continues to change as well. With fewer leaves blocking the sky, sunlight reaches deeper into the forest. This sunlight warms patches of soil, creating small variations in temperature that influence where microbes thrive and where decomposition advances most quickly. These warm patches act as sparks in the slow fire of decay. Standing among these changes, we can sense how layered the process truly is. Decay is not a single event, but a collaboration, an orchestra with many players performing at different tempos. What appears simple is complex. What appears still is full of motion. What appears to end is preparing to begin again. As late autumn leans toward winter, the forest floor reaches a moment of deep transformation. The leaves that once shimmered with color now lie settled in muted browns and soft golds, forming a thick and gentle blanket over the soil. The canopy above has mostly released its final leaves, allowing more light to spill downward. Branches that spent months hidden behind foliage now stand exposed, tracing delicate patterns against the cool sky. On the ground, the decomposition that began with the first rainfall has now grown into a powerful engine of renewal. Moisture lingers in the cool air, settling into the layers of leaves and maintaining the damp environment where microbes thrive. Through these moist layers, bacteria and fungi continue their patient work. Their activity may be invisible, but their influence shapes the entire forest, breaking leaves into forms that the soil can absorb. The scent of the forest changes noticeably during this time. The air carries the earthy aroma of leaves dissolving into soil, a fragrance created by chemical compounds released during decomposition. This scent marks the presence of humus forming beneath the leaf litter. It is rich, dark, and full of life, the product of months of quiet transformation deep within the forest floor. Within this developing humus, nutrients accumulate. Carbon, nitrogen, magnesium, and countless minerals begin their journey back toward the roots of trees and plants. These nutrients do not rise all at once. They move gradually, lifted by water, pulled by roots and carried along the networks of fungi that stretch through the soil like threads of dawn. Mycelium plays a crucial role here. The networks formed by fungal threads act as bridges between the remains of leaves and the living structures of the forest. Through these networks, signals and nutrients travel in both directions. A tree low in nitrogen may receive what it needs through these fungal connections. A decaying leaf may enrich not only the tree above it, but others several meters away. This exchange forms one of the most fascinating biological partnerships on Earth. Roots and fungi cooperate in ways that support the survival of the entire ecosystem, linking individuals into a vast and interdependent community. Beneath our feet, this hidden world forms the true foundation of the forest. It is here that life is recycled, reorganized, and prepared for the seasons to come. As decomposition deepens, the forest becomes quieter. Birdsong is more sparse. Insects move more slowly. Many animals focus on storing energy before winter settles in fully. In this quiet, each movement becomes clearer. The soft crunch of a deer's step echoes through the trees. The flutter of a bird searching the leaf litter carries farther through the thinning air. Light continues to shift in tone and direction. With fewer leaves overhead, sunlight reaches the forest floor more directly, warming patches of soil even during colder days. These warm pockets encourage microbial activity, keeping decomposition alive even as the season grows colder. They become small centers of persistence amid the gradual arrival of winter. The animals that remain active help shape the landscape as well. Mice and birds move leaves aside in their search for food, creating openings where sunlight can strike the soil. Larger animals compress the leaf litter with their steps, pressing the layers closer together, aiding the transfer of moisture deeper into the soil. In this way, every creature becomes an actor in the cycle of renewal. Sometimes, a single cold night changes everything. A thin sheen of frost settles over the forest floor, coating the leaves in delicate crystals that shimmer in the morning light. Frost slows decomposition, but does not stop it. Beneath the frozen surface, warmth remains, and life continues its slow and careful work. As the season enters its final weeks, the transformation reaches a state of almost complete stillness. Most leaves are now fully integrated into the layers below. Only a few holdouts remain on the branches above, trembling in the wind before they join the rest on the forest floor. Their fall marks the closing punctuation of the season. From a scientific perspective, these processes follow precise biochemical pathways. Enzymes break bonds. Microbes release carbon dioxide. Fungi transport nutrients. From a human perspective, the experience feels far more poetic. The forest exudes a sense of completion, as though it has fulfilled its work for the year and can now rest with quiet dignity. Decay is not an ending. It is a transfer. It is the movement of life from one form to another, preparing the ground for renewal. Every fallen leaf contributes to the next season's growth. Every softening pigment becomes part of the soil that will nourish roots in spring. Every quiet moment of decomposition becomes preparation for the burst of life that will return with the sun. In the next chapter, we will follow this cycle deeper into winter, where the forest enters a state of profound rest. For now, imagine the earth beneath your feet, rich with transformation, holding the memory of the seasons that shaped it. Above the forest, the sky stretches pale and clear, as though the season itself has exhaled. The sun sits lower now, tracing a softer path across the day. Its light, once direct and bright, moves in longer angles that create the gentle warmth of autumn afternoons. This is the long angle of autumn light, a subtle shift that changes everything we see. Leaves glow with deeper tones, shadows stretch across the forest floor. Even the air feels touched by gold, carrying a softness that belongs only to this season. Every season begins not on the ground, but in the motion of the earth itself. Though we experience autumn through color and temperature, its origin lies far above, in the geometry of our orbit around the sun. Our planet does not spin upright. It leans slightly, about 23.5 degrees off-center. That small tilt creates everything we know as the rhythm of seasons, shaping cycles of growth, rest, and renewal that define the pattern of life on land. If Earth stood completely straight, sunlight would fall evenly year-round. The equator would remain warm. The poles would remain cold. There would be no spring or autumn, no migration of color across the hemispheres, no ebb and flow of light. But because we lean, sunlight shifts across the planet as we orbit the sun. This movement of light sets the pace for every transformation we see across the seasons. In June, the northern hemisphere tilts toward the sun. Days stretch long. The angle of light is steep and strong, fueling photosynthesis with immense energy. In December, the hemisphere tilts away and the nights grow deep. Light arrives in a slant, lingering low above the horizon, creating the cool tones of winter. Between these extremes lie the equinoxes, brief moments of balance when day and night stand equal. Autumn begins just after. That balance tips toward darkness. From that moment forward, light begins its slow retreat. Each sunrise arrives later, each sunset earlier. The world tilts gently into shadow minute by minute. For the trees, this change in light is everything. The chemistry of their leaves, the flow of their sap, and the rhythm of their growth all follow the language of the sun. It is not cold that brings autumn. It is light that leaves. This truth sits at the heart of every golden leaf, every early dusk, every shift in the forest. At a physical level, the angle of sunlight changes how energy enters the atmosphere. When the sun sits high, light passes nearly straight through, concentrated and warm. When it lowers toward the horizon, light must travel through more air. Shorter wavelengths scatter away, while longer wavelengths linger. This is why sunsets glow, and why autumn afternoons feel bathed in honey. That same physics colors the forest. The light that touches each leaf in October carries more warmth in tone, but less in energy. It no longer fuels chlorophyll in the same way, so the green pigment fades, revealing the hues beneath. In this way, the story of autumn is as much celestial as it is botanical. The tilt of the planet writes itself into the leaves, leaving traces of cosmic motion in every shade of gold and red. The distance between Earth and the sun changes only slightly through the year, yet the angle of light transforms the world completely. It is a reminder of how small shifts can shape entire ecosystems. At dawn, sunlight moves sideways through mist and trees. It reveals patterns invisible in summer, beams of light that drift between branches, air alive with dust and pollen suspended like tiny lanterns. Photographers call this the golden hour, For the forest, this is the golden season. Each sunrise becomes a soft unveiling, and each sunset a quiet retreat. The tilt of the earth shapes not only the light, but the air. As solar energy decreases, air currents slow and adjust. The jet stream drifts southward, carrying cool air from the poles. Temperature gradients between land and sea begin to shift as the sun's energy softens. Warm air rises more slowly. Cool air travels farther. The atmosphere enters a gentle turbulence unique to the autumn season. Mist appears more often in the mornings, forming silver veils that linger above fields and between the trees. These delicate clouds are born from cooling air, meeting warm ground, each droplet suspended in place until sunlight slowly dissolves it. Rain becomes softer, more frequent, arriving in thin sheets rather than heavy storms. Each rainfall darkens the bark of trees, enriches the scent of the forest floor, and loosens the final leaves still clinging to their stems. This gentle weather is part of the autumn dance. Light fades, air cools, moisture gathers. Each element works together to move the season toward rest. Wind plays its own role. As the jet stream shifts southward, breezes change direction and strength. The forest feels these patterns intimately. Some days bring a quiet stillness. Leaves hang motionless, catching faint glimmers of gold. Other days bring soft gusts that travel through the canopy like waves, lifting thousands of leaves into motion. Each falling leaf is part of this choreography. Gravity provides the final pull, but it is the wind that decides the path. A short drop straight down, or a wandering journey through open air. The movement may appear random, yet it follows physics shaped by the tilt of the earth, the cooling atmosphere, and the structure of the forest itself. What we see as a simple flutter is the visible edge of the planet's seasonal engine. From above, the transformation becomes even more remarkable. Satellites orbiting Earth capture vast sweeps of color shifting across continents. Forests that once glowed green transition through amber and crimson before settling into brown. To view these images is to witness the planet breathing. Whole landscapes inhale and exhale light, following the tilt of the axis as faithfully as a tide follows the pull of the moon. Autumn, seen from space, is not simply a seasonal change. It is a rebalancing of energy across half the planet. In the northern hemisphere, chlorophyll retreats and pigments rise. At the same moment, the southern hemisphere moves toward spring, preparing to burst into color. The two halves of the world move in opposition, yet remain part of the same continuous cycle. When one side rests, the other grows. When one releases its leaves, the other unfolds new ones. It is a planetary conversation carried across oceans and continents through the simple tilt of a spinning world. This alternating rhythm is older than any forest, older than any species that walks upon the land. It has guided migrations, germination cycles, and the behavior of animals since long before humans took their first steps. Our ancestors learned to read this rhythm by watching the world around them. They noted the position of sunrise, the length of shadows, the timing of leaf fall. These observations became the earliest form of astronomy, long before telescopes or scientific theory. The forest served as their calendar. The sky served as their clock. Through these cues, they knew when to plant, when to harvest, and when to rest. Light guided their lives just as it guides the trees today. Even now, though modern life distracts us from these natural signals, our bodies still respond. As daylight shortens, melatonin rises earlier in the evening. We feel sleepier sooner. Our metabolism slows slightly. We, too, are creatures of light. Our internal rhythms follow the same celestial cues that tell a tree when to let go of its leaves. The nostalgia many people feel in autumn may come from this biological memory. We sense the retreat of light, and with it comes a quiet longing that is both ancient and familiar. The forest mirrors this feeling. Its trees do not resist the shortening days. They do not mourn the loss of summer. They simply follow the sun's instruction, adapting with steadiness and calm. Science shows us that the same force shaping the sky also shapes the leaves. The tilt of the earth and the fall of color are expressions of one unified law: energy seeking balance. Balance is what defines life on this planet. If the tilt were greater, seasons would become extreme. If the tilt were smaller, they would fade almost entirely. Our world exists in a delicate middle space, perfect for life as we know it. Autumn is the inhale turning into exhale, the moment when light softens and the year prepares to rest. The colors of the season are not merely decoration, but expressions of equilibrium between light and dark, warmth and cold, growth and retreat. We often speak of the end of summer, yet nature does not recognize endings in the human sense. It recognizes only transitions, each one shaped by laws that move from the orbit of the planet to the chemistry within a leaf. Light becomes pigment. Pigment becomes soil. Soil becomes root. Root becomes leaf. The cycle continues, written across the earth with quiet precision, guided by a tilt so small it would be invisible were it not for the colors it creates. If we could stand beyond Earth and watch the seasons unfold, we would see color move across continents in waves. Green rises, fades, and returns in a slow-motion tide that reflects the breathing of the planet. Forests shift tone as sunlight changes angle. Meadows brighten and dull. Mountainsides glow in gold before returning to muted browns. From afar, it is easy to see that no place on Earth is still. Each region follows its own rhythm, yet all are part of the same continuous transformation. The movement of light shapes migration, growth, and even the timing of sleep across species. Birds respond to these changes before many humans notice them. Shifts in daylight signal to their internal clocks that it is time to travel. Even slight changes in the length of the day can trigger powerful instincts. Some species travel thousands of kilometers, following ancient routes passed down through generations not by map, but by the language of light and Earth's magnetic field. Their journeys mirror the tilt of the planet itself. Animals on the ground respond with equal sensitivity. Deer become more active at dawn and dusk, adjusting their patterns to the shifting boundaries of light. Insects slow their movement as temperatures fall. Some burrow deeper into the soil. Others lay eggs that will remain dormant through winter, waiting for the return of the sun. Humans, though far removed from the cycles that shaped early survival, still feel these transitions. Our bodies are tuned to daylight in ways we rarely consider. As evenings arrive earlier, melatonin begins to rise sooner. Circadian rhythms adjust, guiding us gently toward longer nights and quieter evenings. We feel this shift as calm, introspection, or nostalgia. The nostalgia of autumn often carries a sensation of memory. It is common to feel as though we have lived this moment before, even if we cannot name when. This feeling may come from the way light softens at the edges of the day. Warm tones cast across cool air create contrasts that feel emotional, stirring something quiet within us. The beauty of autumn is not solely visual. It has a texture, a temperature, and a scent that awaken instincts older than recorded history. The scent of fallen leaves carries chemical compounds that microbes release as they break down plant material. These earthy aromas have been part of autumn for as long as forests have existed. Temperature also shapes the atmosphere of the season. Cool air holds moisture differently, creating fog that settles in valleys and drifts among trees. This fog softens sound and light, giving the season a muted stillness. Footsteps become quieter. Voices carry differently. Even the wind seems slower, weighed down by the density of the air. These environmental shifts influence the forest's final preparations. Trees respond to diminishing light by slowing their metabolism, conserving the energy needed to survive winter. Sap thickens and moves more slowly. The inner workings of each tree shift from growth to preservation, a transition made possible only because the signal comes from the sun itself. As leaves fall in greater numbers, the forest opens to the sky. Sunlight reaches the ground more freely, illuminating patches of moss and soil that were shaded during summer. These newly lit spaces become pockets of warmth, attracting insects and small animals seeking the last comfortable moments of the year. The forest glows from within as beams of gold drift through the thinning canopy. When clouds gather, they amplify the effect of the low sun. Light bounces between layers of atmosphere, creating soft halos that rim the edges of leaves and branches. This interplay of clouds and light shapes the emotional signature of autumn, a blend of brilliance and gentleness that feels both familiar and fleeting. It lasts only a few weeks, yet its impression lingers long after the season passes. As autumn leans further toward winter, the transformation in the sky becomes even more pronounced. The sun takes a shorter path each day, lingering near the horizon, as though it is reluctant to rise too high. These long, shallow angles of light create the most distinctive moments of the season. The world glows without harshness. Colors deepen, shadows lengthen, and the forest feels wrapped in a soft radiance. Even the air participates in this shift. Cooler temperatures slow the movement of molecules, changing the clarity and color of the light that reaches our eyes. Dust, pollen, and droplets suspended in the atmosphere scatter light differently now. Shorter wavelengths fade away more easily, while warmer tones remain, saturating the landscape in gold and amber. This is why autumn sunsets feel broader and more dramatic. The sun travels longer through the atmosphere before setting, creating layers of warm color stretched across the sky. When clouds pass overhead, they reflect the light downward, illuminating the forest from above with soft, glowing sheets of color. Even the branches of bare trees seem to shine for a moment. But beneath the beauty is precise physics. The angle of sunlight determines not just color, but temperature, wind patterns, and the timing of the first frost. As the sun sinks lower, the energy reaching the ground decreases. The earth loses heat more quickly at night, leading to cooler mornings and the shimmering crystals we see on grass and leaves at dawn. Frost may appear delicate, but it carries immense influence. A single frosty morning can signal the final stages of leaf fall, prompting trees to release what few leaves remain. Animals respond as well. Birds seek sheltered branches, Squirrels move with greater urgency. Insects withdraw into bark and soil where the temperature remains more stable. These adjustments mirror the same grand pattern that governs the movement of light. Every creature, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree, responds to changes that begin with the tilt of the earth. This shared response creates the harmony of autumn. It is not a coincidence that migrations, leaf fall, and cooling skies happen together. They are elements of the same celestial choreography. As days shorten further, the forest settles into a deeper calm. Open spaces appear between branches, revealing more of the sky. The horizon widens. The forest feels larger, more open, as if inhaling before the long night of winter. This openness allows starlight to reach the ground more clearly. With fewer leaves to scatter light, the night sky becomes astonishingly bright. Constellations that were hidden in summer now shine with crisp clarity. The contrast between day and night deepens. Daylight glows with gold. Night arrives quickly with silver and blue. The forest transitions between these two worlds with a calm that feels almost ceremonial. Cold air settles in low places. Mist forms in valleys. Each evening feels like a gentle rehearsal for winter. And yet, even in this descent toward darkness, there is no sense of decline. Autumn does not feel like loss, but like preparation, the steady rebalancing of energy before the next cycle begins. The forest does not resist this shift. It embraces it. Trees conserve energy. Animals store food. The soil absorbs nutrients. Everything moves in quiet cooperation with the falling light. In this way, autumn is a mirror for our own lives. We too experience seasons of brightness and seasons of rest. We feel moments of expansion and moments of retreat, each one necessary for growth. The tilt of the earth influences more than climate. It influences mood, memory, and the inner landscape of the mind. We feel something in autumn because we are part of the same rhythm. As twilight deepens, the sky becomes a gradient of rose, amber, and violet. The last leaves tremble against branches, catching the fading glow. The air cools around them, carrying the scent of earth and smoke. This is the threshold between seasons, a pause between sunlight and shadow, a moment when the world seems to exhale before winter arrives. The forest stands in acceptance, shaped by the same celestial balance that has guided life for millions of years. In the next chapter, we turn toward the human heart of this season. We will explore why autumn evokes such emotion, how memory interacts with light and scent, and why this time of year feels both tender and profound. For now, imagine the curve of the planet beneath you, the sun leaning low, and the forest bathed in gold. All of it part of the same quiet movement through space, part of the science of time and beauty. For all its quiet beauty, autumn is not only a season of the trees, it is a season of the human mind. A shift in the world outside creates a subtle shift within, one we feel long before winter arrives. When the first leaves begin to change, something stirs in us. A soft awareness rises with the scent of cool air and wood smoke. It feels ancient, as though our bodies remember something older than thought. Science tells us that the rhythm of the seasons lives inside us too. Our biology is tuned to light in ways that mirror the behavior of trees. Inside the brain is a structure no larger than a grain of rice, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It acts as our internal clock, receiving information directly from the eyes to synchronize sleep, temperature, and hormone cycles. As autumn arrives and days shorten, this inner clock shifts. Melatonin, the hormone that induces sleep, begins to rise earlier. We feel drowsy sooner, more reflective, more still. At the same time, cortisol levels slowly decline. This gentle drop softens our energy. Our pace slows, mirroring the world outside. We feel a natural invitation toward quieter evenings and inward thought. These biological changes create what many describe as the mood of autumn, a slower rhythm, a sense of calm, a shift toward introspection. It is not coincidence that we turn inward as the trees let go of their leaves. We are responding to the same reduction in sunlight, the same cue to conserve energy before the winter season. In evolutionary terms, this sensitivity once helped our ancestors survive. Less light signaled the need to gather close, to rest, to prepare for cold nights and scarce food. Though modern life has changed our routines, our biology has not forgotten. The wisdom of slowing down lives deep within us, shaped by countless generations who listen to the sky. Light influences more than sleep. It shapes emotion through the chemistry of the brain. When sunlight touches the retina, it stimulates production of serotonin, the neurotransmitter linked to contentment and calm. As daylight fades earlier in autumn, serotonin levels naturally dip. For many, this creates a gentle melancholy. For others, it contributes to a deeper sadness known as seasonal affective disorder. Rate 100%, pitch 1%. Yet, even this emotional change has purpose. It encourages stillness, reflection, and recalibration. Autumn is the season that allows the mind to slow enough to feel. Across cultures, this time of year has long been associated with thought, gratitude, and the gathering of meaning from the year that has passed. Science and tradition meet in the same rhythm of introspection. The senses sharpen in cooler air. Moisture holds scent more easily, carrying the aroma of fallen leaves and damp earth. These scents release compounds such as geosmin and terpenes. When they reach the nose, they activate the olfactory bulb, a structure connected directly to memory and emotion. This is why a single whiff of autumn can summon childhood moments or long-forgotten images. The hippocampus, the brain's center of memory, becomes active when these scents arrive. It stores not only the smell itself, but the emotional atmosphere surrounding it. In autumn, memory and environment merge. We remember through air, through color, through sound, almost as though the season itself carries our history. Even sound changes our inner landscape during this season. The soft, irregular rustling of leaves has been shown to lower cortisol and calm the nervous system. Sound ecologists describe these frequencies as naturally therapeutic. The forest becomes a form of medicine, each gust of wind rearranging the canopy into a gentle soundtrack of release. Vision changes too. The low angle of sunlight creates deeper contrast, making warm colors appear richer and more vivid. Warm tones such as gold, red, and amber evoke feelings of comfort and safety. Some psychologists believe this response may come from ancient associations with fire, shelter, and communal warmth. These colors soothe the mind even as they mark the fading of summer. We are wired to respond to color emotionally. As chlorophyll fades and carotenoids rise, the forest shifts into a palette that mirrors warmth even as temperatures fall. It is a paradox the brain interprets with a blend of comfort and longing. It becomes clear why artists and poets turn to autumn again and again. Science explains the change through molecules and wavelengths, yet art expresses what it feels like to witness that change. Both languages describe the same truth. Rate 100%, pitch 1%. Change is beautiful, even when it signals impermanence. This duality sits at the core of autumn's emotional power. Psychologists refer to this feeling as aesthetic melancholy. It is the quiet pleasure found in scenes that blend beauty with transience, creating a sense of tenderness rather than sorrow. Autumn captures this sensation perfectly. Even the way sunlight filters through thinning branches seems to mirror our own emotional state. It becomes softer, slower, more contemplative. Our ancestors honored this transition with festivals of light, harvest meals, and rituals of gratitude. They understood instinctively that the fading of the year called for gathering, reflection, and storytelling. That wisdom remains woven into us. Today, the rituals are different. We express them through creativity, quiet evenings, holidays, or family traditions. But the instinct is the same, to mark the passage of time with meaning. The feeling that arises in autumn is a sense of belonging to something cyclical and ancient. It is the recognition that we are held within a rhythm larger than ourselves. Neuroscience helps explain this sense of familiarity. The limbic system, the region of the brain involved in emotion and memory, becomes highly active in response to seasonal change. When we see the colors of autumn, the amygdala and hippocampus begin to work in tandem. They store not only the sight of the leaves, but the feeling of the moment. This is why memories formed in autumn can stay vivid for decades. Moments of transition imprint more deeply than moments of stillness. The human brain evolved to pay attention when the environment changed, because change meant opportunity or danger. Although the dangers of ancient life are gone, the instinct remains. In the shifting light of autumn, our awareness sharpens. We notice beauty more fully, and we feel time more clearly. There is another rhythm layered within us, one that moves more slowly than the circadian cycle. It is the circannual rhythm, a biological pattern that spans the entire year. Hormone levels, immune response, and even cognitive performance fluctuate across seasons. These changes reflect the light cycles our species evolved under long before artificial illumination. Autumn activates the part of this rhythm associated with rest and recalibration. As daylight decreases, the immune system subtly strengthens, preparing the body for winter. Energy shifts inward. The drive for intense activity wanes, and the desire for warmth and connection rises. This internal shift is not a flaw, but a feature of human biology. We are meant to slow down for part of the year. Autumn provides the natural setting for that transition. The nostalgia we feel as the leaves begin to fall is therefore not just sentiment. It is recognition. The same part of the brain that processes emotion also interprets the passage of time. When we sense that something beautiful is temporary, the emotional response intensifies. Our minds become more present, more attuned to detail, as though trying to hold the moment for as long as possible. In this way, autumn teaches a quiet truth. Nothing lasts, and that is what makes everything precious. The falling leaves, the shifting light, the cool air on the skin all remind us of the fragility woven into life. But fragility is not weakness. It is the condition that allows change, growth, and renewal. The very impermanence of the season is what gives it emotional weight. Autumn's quiet melancholy is not sadness, but clarity. It is the awareness of being alive in a world where everything moves, everything transforms. When we walk through a forest in fall, we are not only observing nature's chemistry, we are participating in it. Our senses, hormones, and emotions shift in response to the same cues that guide the trees. Our breath mixes with the air the trees release. Our eyes capture the last warm rays of the year. Our minds slow in harmony with the fading light. The science of autumn is inseparable from its emotion. What we feel is not beyond biology, but created by it, shaped by the light that touches both leaves and neurons. As autumn deepens, the emotional landscape within us continues to shift. We begin to feel time differently, not as a steady march, but as a series of moments illuminated by change. This change in perception has roots in neurobiology. The brain pays heightened attention during periods of transition, creating stronger memories and stronger emotional impressions. Autumn engages this system completely. Pitch 1%. The lower sun angle produces longer shadows and sharper contrasts. Our eyes respond by widening, adjusting to collect more light. This increased sensitivity heightens visual awareness, making small details stand out. Patterns in the bark, the iridescence of a fallen leaf, the texture of moss beneath our feet all feel more vivid. This sensory richness can lead to feelings of presence and calm, as though the world has slowed down for us to notice it. Cooler air sharpens the senses in other ways too. Breathing becomes easier in lower humidity. Scents travel farther and linger longer. The result is a kind of heightened clarity in both mind and body. This clarity often leads to reflection. Many people find themselves thinking about their lives more honestly at this time of year. The season encourages it. In psychology, this tendency is known as seasonal introspection. Studies show that people naturally evaluate their goals and habits during autumn, far more than in other seasons. It is a biological invitation to take stock. Perhaps this is why journaling, creativity, and quiet hobbies become more appealing as the year turns. The mind seeks stillness in the same way the forest does. Even the human social instinct shifts with the season. Oxytocin, the hormone associated with bonding and connection, tends to rise as temperatures fall. This change nudges us toward closeness, gathering, and shared warmth. Our ancestors once relied on these instincts for survival during winter. Gathering in groups conserved heat, shared resources, and provided safety. Though our lives have changed, the emotional imprint remains. Autumn, therefore, becomes a season of community. We crave company a little more. Meals taste richer. Conversations feel deeper. It is as though the cooling air draws us closer together. The atmosphere of the season supports this sense of connection. Firelight, warm colors, and soft evenings create environments that encourage openness and feeling. These sensory cues activate the parasympathetic nervous system, helping the body relax and trust. At the same time, the forest teaches us the importance of letting go. As leaves fall without hesitation, they embody a principle that is essential for emotional well-being. Letting go is not a passive act. It requires awareness, acceptance, and the willingness to move with change rather than resist it. This is one of autumn's quiet lessons. Thank you for joining Dreaming Through Knowledge, and for walking through the forest with us.